The United States and Russia have struck a deal to end all fighting in Syria, and this time they say they're more confident that it will take effect. The Syrian government, though, has made no commitment to the deal, and its forces continue to pound the city of Aleppo. The deal also coincides with a UN report that shows just how desperate the situation is for the people of Syria, who've already endured 5 years of war. Anne Barker has our report.
In mid-March, it'll be 5 years since the war broke out in Syria, and the number killed, wounded or displaced shows no sign of slowing. A UN Commission of Inquiry tasked with documenting human rights abuses for each year since the war began has just released its latest report. In short, it says civilians continue to bear the brunt of the conflict and that the fractured Syrian state is on the brink of collapse. The inquiry's chair is Paulo Pinheiro.
Its population continues to be subjected to the most undescribable sufferings. The involvement of an ever-growing number of actors in the conflict has led to an escalation of hostilities, which in turn has resulted in more killings of civilians.
The 5-year conflict has killed an estimated 250,000 people and driven 11 million people, or half of Syria's original population, from their homes. The UN report says violations against civilians, including the use of starvation, amount to war crimes and crimes against humanity.
Not a single warring party respects international humanitarian law, the Geneva Conventions, all the conventions of human rights.
The UN Commission of Inquiry has now compiled a confidential list of suspected war criminals and military units from all sides of the conflict that it keeps in a safe in Geneva. It's urged the UN Security Council to refer the Syrian conflict to the International Criminal Court in The Hague or a specially commissioned war crimes tribunal. But Russia and China have defeated such moves in the past, and because Syria is not an ICC member, the ICC can only take on such a case with a Security Council referral. One UN Commission member, Twt Syria, says there may be other avenues the UN can pursue.
The Commission is cooperating with some countries bilaterally in terms of sharing some information so as to facilitate national prosecution.
Talk of war crimes prosecution is perhaps premature when the military bombardment of Syria continues on the ground. Syrian government forces now appear on track to retake the city of Aleppo and are pushing to recapture the city of Raqqa from Islamic State, all of which casts deep scepticism on news of another plan to cease hostilities among the warring parties by next Saturday. Russia and the US have renewed a deal for all parties to stop fighting, except against ISIS and other terror groups. A White House spokesman, Josh Earnest, acknowledges the deal will be difficult to implement.
After all, for years, we have been trying to reach a diplomatic resolution to the many problems that plague that nation that has broken apart.
Crucially, though, the Syrian government and rebel groups haven't agreed to the deal, although Russian President Vladimir Putin says Moscow will do whatever is necessary to ensure Syria respects the agreement. Russian and US servicemen together will define the territories on the maps where these groups are operating. Armed operations won't be held against them by the Syrian Arab Republic, Russian military forces, or coalition forces headed by the US. The UN and the US are hopeful the cessation in hostilities will take effect, but a US State Department spokesman, Mark Toner, acknowledges it'll be especially difficult to enforce without monitoring on the ground.
There's not going to be any kind of force on the ground or monitors on the ground to look at this other than where we get information from in terms of intelligence, but also through NGOs reporting on the ground and journalists, frankly, who give feedback as to who's being hit by whom.
In a separate move, a UN team is to begin investigations on the ground in Syria next month to identify those responsible for chemical attacks in several cities over the past couple of years. The Syrian president, Bashar al-Assad, and rebel groups have accused each other of using chemical weapons.
Anne Barker with our